You've tuned into Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes. Your access to success strategies and more to help you move onward and upward with your life. Listen in each week as she interviews others who have really taken their essence to the next level and truly unpaused their life. Now here's your host, Dr. Callie Estes.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Callie Estes, and I am founder of the Addictions Academy, the Addictions Coach, and Rehab Rescue. Welcome to Unpause Your Life. This is a great podcast where we showcase people who have done something extraordinary with their life. I welcome you, and I hope you enjoy all of our guests.
On my way, found a reason to wake up another day.
Before we get started, let's hear this short message from one of my supporters.
All the things that you won't do.
Did you know 81% of Americans would like to become a published author? Chances are you might be one of them. What's stopping you? Writing and publishing a book takes a lot of work and is expensive, right? Well, not anymore. For your next book project, or even your first, team up with Hassle-Free Books. They make it so easy to become an author. They remove all of the fuss and struggle and make it smooth and simple. And it's far more affordable than you could ever imagine. Go to hasslefreebooks.com and use promo code UNPAUSE to receive a 10% discount off of any book project. Get started right away and become a published author in as little as 45 days. For your free 1-hour book formula guide, which will show you just how painless it can be to become an author, head to hasslefreebooks.com today.
All right. Thanks again for joining me. Let's get started with today's show.
Took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of life.
You are listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Callie Estes, the Addictions Coach and the Addictions Academy. I have Koorosh Rassekh with me. He is an addiction counselor specializing in substance use, recovery, teen addiction, mindfulness therapy, psychology, and overdose. He founded EVO, an outpatient treatment program in Venice, California, with the goal to radically transform the field of addiction treatment. Drawing from the latest research and thinking in the field, EVO employs an integrated, no-judgment approach that believes you don't have to stop to start. Welcome, Koorosh. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dr. Estes. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, I've got some questions for you. Tell me what is different about EVO.
Okay, EVO is different than traditional addiction treatment in that we really focus on the root causes of addiction rather than focusing on the substances or the patterns of use. And in that process, we work with clients to imagine what their life would be like around relationships with other people, relationships with themselves and the world around them, relationships with work. We also work on traumas or other things that may be getting in the way of life. And in this process, we also work with clients to imagine what their relationship with substances would be when everything is going well, whether that's abstinence, moderation, or most commonly, some combination of the two.
Okay, so you're telling me your program, the goal is not about stopping drugs and alcohol. The goal is about something else.
Yeah, exactly. The goal is to figure out what was it that made drugs and alcohol and other behaviors. It's rare for people to come in and they're just dealing with one thing that is being used or employed in service of either getting something, a way of getting through the day, being more social, being more productive, looking a certain way, not looking a certain way, or going away from something, some trauma or events that may be haunting, some inability to fit in, etc. So, of course, we need to attend to the presenting day-to-day habits and patterns that would get in the way of a person's success. But that's really not the focus of our treatment outcome. That's just sort of attending to what's present right now. The focus of the treatment is the individual and the community around them. What is it? How did it go wrong? And how do we get it back on track?
So is this something that insurance pays for, or is this more of a cash pay type concept?
So this is a cash pay concept. What we have done is we have highly qualified, highly trained, licensed staff. And what we've done is developed a program that delivers the best treatment we can. And we have identified all of the reimbursable sessions within our program from week to week. What we do with clients is who want to utilize their insurance that they're mandated to purchase is to figure out with the insurance companies what's reimbursable and help clients get reimbursement directly. But at this time, we don't do any direct insurance billing, mostly because we'd have to compromise the treatment that we're delivering, the quality and the effectiveness of the treatment, in order to fit into what insurance companies want. They sort of want this cookie cutter answer with certain things that we actually think are counterproductive for effective treatment.
Okay. So you're going against the mainstream of treatment is about abstinence-based end game.
Yes, we are.
Now, when somebody comes to you, are they more mental health, or are they more addiction-based or behavioral-based, or what are you seeing?
Well, we see a pretty good cross-section. Everybody that comes to us is dealing with addiction in some form, right? So that seems to be the primary referral, mostly around substances, although we do also get referrals for people who have behavioral addictions, gambling, for example, gaming, for example. At this time, I think because we are newer and establishing ourselves, the primary referral sources, people think of us when they have people who are struggling with substances. However, when we're dealing with that, it's never happened where somebody comes in and it's just simply everything in my life is perfect and I have this alcohol problem. Usually there are other dimensions of struggle. And in fact, that's one of the things that we have found most powerful from the feedback we've received from our clients, who tell us, particularly clients who have had more than one treatment experience, that this treatment is much more difficult because we require them to think about what their own goals are, what's happening for them, whether it's sadness or sorrow or those kinds of things that fall under the depressive categories, or worry and stress and those other things that fall under the anxiety categories. Some young folks who are just can't figure out how to take that first step and move on with life. And, sort of another category in our field would be this, and I hate this name, but this idea of failure to launch. So these are different things that come with people. We look at it all as a whole, as one person with lots of different areas that we can look at and support and figure out how to put the pieces together.
So one of my specialties is failure to launch. I work with a lot of kids that have helicopter parenting, that can't get their feet off the ground. They can't get going. So why do you hate that term?
So the only reason I hate it is, and I should probably choose my words more carefully. Hate's a big word. I struggle with that because failure to launch really sort of suggests that there is some failure, it's in the name, in that young person's experience. And I also specialize in working with adolescents, young adults, which I think now goes for men into their 40s and for women into the early 30s. And I just look at these clients and when I get to know their experience, it's like they're looking at an empty pool and they're not jumping in. And then we're saying that you're failing to jump in. The world they see is an empty pool, and actually not engaging in a way is adaptive. Not to say that they shouldn't. We just have to figure out a way of finding a pool they want to jump into that makes sense to them, give them swimming lessons, so to speak, all of those tools and the things that they're going to need to be able to succeed.
Okay, so what do? You got a 24-year-old kid who lives at home, who's got a 4-year degree in marketing, who just can't find a job, just can't work, just can't exist. When he does get hired, he gets fired because he shows up late. He just can't get with the world we know it. So
Right.
if we, in a sense, took that model, which has created a pool for him, we're changing the way the world works to adapt to him instead of asking him to fit into what model's already there.
So what I would say is somewhere in the middle of that, there are different worlds. There are different communities. There are different aspects to what that kid may or may not do. And look to see what's getting in the way of that. Why are they getting fired? What kinds of jobs are they going for? How is this pattern even serving the family as a whole? I think you've probably seen, I see way too much of these young adults serving a purpose in the family system by bringing the parents together. And the closer they get to becoming an empty nester family, the bigger the struggle becomes, simply because these parents have had 20 years, 18 years of focusing on the kid as the glue of the relationship. So we work on all of these different dimensions. What are the family systems and the power of that? What's happening with this kid, and where might they find a pursuit that would be more congruent with who they want to be? We also look at what is their lifestyle and what is the lifestyle that a job is going to afford them. And often we find that kids can't get a job to pay for their sort of incidental lifestyle under their family's financial system. And so it becomes harder for them to get through the day if they have a job versus staying at home and dealing with the grief of the struggle and the conflict in the family.
Okay, so how do you treat a 24-year-old that can't sustain a job, who lives at home, who mom and dad have said, we're done? He's got sobriety, but he's got no life skills. He doesn't want to work. He doesn't want to function. He doesn't want to do what's asked of him. What are you doing to treat that that's different?
So our program has three areas. One is psychotherapy, one is somatics, and the third is case management. So we call it engagement. So they get assigned a case manager at the time of enrollment who works specifically with helping that person engage in the world outside. One of the first things that we would do is to begin to chip away at the idea of the kid not wanting to work, or not this idea that the kid is somehow at fault for everything that's happening. We certainly want them to take responsibility for what their actions are and the consequences on themselves and people around them. But our idea, what we embody as a treatment team, is to look at that person and say, this life must be so hard that they don't even know how to take that first step. If we sort of rewind some time ago, before we really started to think about depression in a different way, we used to talk about people who deal with depression in similar language. They just are lazy. They just don't, just tighten up your bootstraps and let's get going. You got to just go through it. And we now realize just how difficult it is for somebody who's dealing with that kind of a condition to even get off the couch, much less go and work. I think there's a lot of young people that fall into that category. The struggle of just being in the world is so great that they can't get beyond that first step. They can't figure it out. They're expected to get jobs. They don't know how to perform in a job. They don't have the skills to show up. So we work very specifically, on the psychological level, working on changing that dialogue from I'm failing to, wow, this is really hard for me. And how do I organize a life to make it easier so that I can be more productive? What are even my goals? Then we work on the very practical level. This is what it means to show up to work. And maybe you don't need to get a full-time job, but get a part-time job, a 1 day or a 2 day a week job, so that it's not too much. Sometimes the families are in so much distress from so many years of intensity that they're sort of wanting that immediate fix right now. And that puts the whole system in jeopardy. It's a trap. There's no way this kid can succeed. So we also work with the family to try to establish a new pattern and a runway for this kid to be able to succeed working with us.
This is interesting because you and I are complete opposites.
Oh, really?
I don't look at the kid as he can't function. The millennials that I'm dealing with, I see the parents that have caused this.
Yeah.
So the parents are helicopter parents. They come in, they go, they give money, and I go accountability. So instead of hand-holding the child going, okay, you can't work in this world, what I do is the complete opposite. I give them a boot camp crash course in this is how the world operates, and you've got to get with the program. Because we're not going to tailor our job system because you don't want to work 9 to 5 and you want to make $1 million by the time you're 25. You've got to jump in there and make $5 an hour. So I do the complete opposite of what you do. I have the parents cut them off and I parent. I come in and I show the kid, this is the way things are going to be and this is what you've got to do. And the difference is it used to be you got cap and gown and graduation for high school. Now you get cap and gown and graduation for kindergarten and then middle school. And then nobody gets cut from cheerleading and nobody gets cut from football. So we as a society have created this unrealistic expectation that a millennial is going to succeed at everything they do. And the minute they fail, they're depressed, they can't exist, they can't function. So instead of me giving them a part-time job, because that's all that I think they can do, I want a full-time job. I want to teach them how to fit into the world instead of the world revolving around them. So you and I are complete opposite. That's interesting.
So I think we are aligned in some of the ways that we think about what happens. And how great, and from my perspective, how great that there's more than one option, right? How great that two different people and two different groups can have such different approaches because no one approach is ideal or useful for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And that's interesting. I would love to see how many kids have success doing it your way versus my way. I would like to see you take 10 kids and I take 10 kids and we meet up 6 months later and say these failed and these succeeded. I would love to see that dynamic and see how things. Yeah.
I would love that. And I'll tell you what I love about that. I love that 20 kids get help. And not only do 20 kids get help, they get help from people who are working with each other, but in very different ways and open-minded, because we're having this conversation right now around, well, how can I improve my program? So some of the things that I heard you say, that sort of from my side and then from your side, like in my mind, I was like, well, knowing about your reputation and having listened to some of your podcasts, I know, or I think it's safe to assume that where you come from is a place of care, compassion, and the best interest of your clients in mind. So what you're doing is not brutality, but tough love, right? Which is a difference. Right. Not brutality, it's tough love. Yeah, I'm sure that if you didn't do it the right way, they wouldn't come back for session 2. They wouldn't have to. Nobody's forcing them just because their parents cut them off. And on our side, it's easy to look at ours and go, oh, we're coddling kids. Well, we're not coddling kids. We actually ask quite a bit of kids. We just conceptualize all of the different things that happen to them. The plight of the millennials is real. This is the generational problem. My generation has its things, other generations. Theirs is exactly what you said. They want to go from 0 to 1 million tomorrow, and it's not even financial. They've been taught that they can do anything, and it has to also have meaning, right? So they don't want to do things that are menial because it's below them or it doesn't fulfill that sense of purpose in this world.
And that's it right there. That's the difference between our generation and their generation, because we were taught you work for what you want. They were taught you can get whatever you want because of who you are, and you need to fulfill your life purpose. We were never taught that. We were told you get a job, whether you deliver papers or waitress or work at the mall, you go get a job, period. They're told, why get a menial job when you have a bigger purpose in life to give back and be, humanitarian and do all these things, which is totally opposite of us, and we're the parents. So the parents panic and go, oh, what do I do with this? Because he won't get a job at the bookstore or the hobby store or what have you. He thinks he can make $1 million and I can't get him off the sofa.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that this is happening? It's happening, and it's happening systematically. So it's not like, oh, this particular family, they must have missed something. But this is just what's happening. And I love the language you used. They were taught. They were given this, right? So they weren't born with the lazy gene. They weren't born with a purpose. I need to have purpose in what I do at the age of 21 gene. This is a thing that they were taught. And I think that's where you and I are very similar, is that we recognize that what these kids have, how these kids have been educated and what they've been given is unrealistic. And therefore, I go to the place, and I won't lump you into this one. I'll just say, I go to the place of saying, why wouldn't they just sit on the couch? They know damn well that they're not going to get out there and make $1 million or make a difference in the world most of the time, right? In the great majority of the time. So why go do that? How do you even do that? How do you go to work from day to day when your expectations are this, but what you're actually doing is pushing papers or punching buttons, or literally sitting there while somebody evaluates whether or not to even give you any responsibility, right? That makes for a really hard day for that person. So yeah, it's a tough situation for them.
It's interesting. I have one, the parents called because they're at their wit's end, and he won't even do chores at home. You know, his room is a mess. I think he's 21 or 22, doesn't want to go to college, has dropped out of college, just can't function. And I said to Mom, do you do his laundry? And she said, yes. And I said, stop. And I said, do you cook for him? She said, yes. I said, stop. And she says, what do I do? I said, you act like he doesn't exist. He's just living in that room. He wants to eat. You give him the credit card and the car keys and say, go to the store, go get groceries. You show him how to do his laundry. And she goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, have you not shown him how to wash his laundry? And she said, no. And I said, every 21-year-old male and female should know how to do their own laundry, period. So now fast forward, I have another client who's 55, whose mother comes to his apartment, collects his laundry, takes it, washes it, folds it, and brings it back.
Right.
And I had to do the separation and sit her down and say, what kind of wife is he going to get if you're doing his laundry? No woman wants mommy to come over. And those are the conversations I have. So I'm very tough love.
Unless able to find a wife who and mom's willing to do her laundry too.
Yeah.
Would be
He didn't.
So these are the systems that people are trapped in, right?
Yeah.
This is it. They're all part of this, and they're trapped in it. And I firmly believe, and I know this from all of these people that I've worked with, my approach isn't the right approach for everybody. And there are people who come to me and who succeed under the way that I approach it, which is very much recognizing, all right, well, this isn't going the way anybody wants to. Things happened to put you all here. So here we are. Now, how do you want it to be different? I agree. Do you want to do the laundry, and how does that affect, how your son or your daughter is in the world? And do you want this person to live in your house or not? And if they don't live in your house, where do they live, and what does that mean to the whole system? And to work with them around kind of getting out and getting on. And then the case management comes in around just teaching somebody. Literally, that would be one of the things we would do, is teach somebody how to do the laundry so the parent doesn't have to teach them, right? We would teach the person how to manage their bank account so the parent doesn't have to do it, simply because if the parent could do it, they would have already done it, right? There's something that's getting in the way of that to begin with.
That's true. And that's part of the problem, and that's the helicopter parenting. They come in, they swoop in, and they're too involved. Where, growing up, most of our parents taught us laundry, cooking, whether we do it or not as adults is another topic, but we were taught how to do these tasks, how to write a check, how to write a resume. The kids these days don't have that skill set.
Right.
And the difference, I think, between the generations is we would go out and learn it. Well, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to learn it. Where they basically say, I don't know how to do this. Someone else needs to figure it out for me. So they give up so easily.
That's the group of people that end up in your office and in my office and really having a tough time. And there's a lot of them the great majority of them who do quite fine. They're out there and they're sort of in the mainstream and figuring it out, and they have good jobs and healthy relationships and lots of debt, and they're figuring it out as they kind of go along. Just like in our generation, there were people, and I'll just sort of use myself as an example. I'm a product of the 80s and the sort of get out there, and as a man, this is what you're supposed to do and make lots and lots of money and blah, blah, blah. And in that process, it didn't make any sense to me. I was able to do it. I was taught it. And a lot of people that are part of my cohort They're out there sort of destroying communities, destroying environments for the sole purpose of making money, right? So that was one of the things missing in our generation, is thoughtfulness around what's going on around. At least I should speak for my generation. And it feels like the pendulum has swung so far that this now generation is sort of so badly needing purpose. You know, for me, it was like having two jobs was the norm with me and my friends, right? And it didn't matter if you came from a wealthy family or not. We worked. We had paper routes before, and etc. This generation, now they're sort of really focused on academics and philanthropy, things like that.
Right. And it would be really interesting if we could combine our values of work and their values of self-worth. And
what I'm talking about.
Put that together and say, this is the person you're supposed to be. Because our generation, our self-esteem, we have so many low self-esteem people in our generation who work, and there's no human connection. And they're all human connection with no work. If we could get everybody on the same page, it'd be amazing.
So I sometimes wonder, is that the next generation? And then I go back and go, wait a minute, that's just not how it's ever worked. I wonder if these are, like, that's just, what's the next generation sort of, labeled thing going to be? But at the end of the day, what we have is we have kids at a disproportionately larger number, I think, than even our generation, that are having a really tough time. We had at least some systems around us that had some luster to them, that we would look at and go, ooh, that's pretty amazing. Whether it was the success of the entrepreneurs and the business, CFOs and the CEOs of companies, or there were politicians or spiritual leaders or whoever they might have been. And it feels like in this generation, some of that luster has been tarnished. And these kids look around, and what adds to their struggle is a society that we live in which we hear about environmental impact of human destruction and consumption. We hear about the human impact of war and militarization. And certainly we look to our political leaders, and it's just a big mess there, no matter what side you're on. And I wonder if all of this is somehow going to come together and actually produce a more kind of balanced next generation.
I would love that. I always think we seem to repeat ourselves. Like, I feel like we're in the 70s all over again. There's eating healthy and organics and not stuffing yourself and world peace. We're there, which is followed by the 80s, which is my generation of how much can I consume, how quickly can I consume it, and where's the party? So right. I'm curious to see if we have that generation next, the screw it generation. Let's just have fun, which followed the 70s. So we'll see, I guess. Now
we will see. For now, it does feel really important, and our company does serve a diverse age range, but our focus and what seems to be attracted to Evo is that young adult population. And I think it's an important place to be and an important population to work with now, because they do have their whole lives and they are the stewards of the next generation. So we get to work with them, and that's quite a privilege and an important work that you and I get to do.
Right. Now tell me a little bit more about your treatment center and how can people reach you and find you?
So Evo Health and Wellness is located in Venice Beach, California. And people can find us on the web at our website at www.evohw.com. And all of our contact information, including direct links, etc., are on that website. We have a Facebook page that we would invite people to join. And we try to really engage with our community, local community, extended community. We have all sorts of different events and community participation forums that we invite professionals and lay folks to. For example, today we have a brown bag where we invite clinicians in our community, psychologists, marriage and family therapists, social workers, case managers from community mental health to high-end private practice, to come in and bring cases that they're having a tough time with, where there's substances or other addictive pattern, and get a free consultation on how they might be able to work with that person. What are some of the danger areas? What are some resources available to them in the community? We have similar meetings for people in the community. So we're pretty actively engaged.
Okay, awesome. What we'll do is when we put the podcast up, we'll put all your things up there so that people can reach you and
Great.
reach out to you if they're looking for some alternative to treatment, which I think a lot of people are starting to gravitate towards because we know the current Minnesota model is not working. The abstinence-based, let's treat the addiction and not the real problem, which is the root cause, is failing.
Absolutely. And that's really the reason EVO is here. It's here because my experiences working in addiction treatment have proven to me that what we're doing is not effective. It's too limited and it misses the mark too much. And I would also love to talk more about how you and I may be able to actually organize that research. We're very sort of research oriented. We do intensive assessments at the time of enrollment and throughout treatment and ongoing to see how we do in a lot of different dimensions of somebody's life. And how nice to be able to look at your approach, which is different than ours, and learn from yours and share with you some of what works from our perspective.
I would love that. I think that'd be fantastic.
Great.
Well, thank you for coming on. And you are listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Kelly Estes. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Head on over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and leave a comment or review of what you think. Or contact us at 1-800-706-0318. If you want to be on our show, feel free to email or call. And if you have a topic, feel free to email or call as well.
Thanks for listening to Unpause Your Life. For show notes and more, head on over to unpauseyourlife.com.
Big shout out to recoveryinnovators.com for help producing this show. Thank you guys.
I took a walk down the long road where they said that I shouldn't go. On my way found a reason to wake up another day. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. No need to escape in love with my pain. I may be weak, but I'm alive, still alive, and I won't be bound by your mistake. No, I won't be your enemy, trapped at the gate. Bring me to life, put me to death. Just give me something that's just not so hard to believe. To believe. To believe. I took a walk down the dark road where they said that I shouldn't go. I knew the dangers of flying. Now I'm so far from solid ground. But they needed to show you all the things that you won't do. Find faith or religion, but nothing to show for it. Too